Okay, in the last two tutorials, we made a new geometry, we made a new state. We also saved them under the name 69F2, because I already had a first one. Once we have now a geometry, so we have a new geometry created, we have a new state created, and we can see what the state is. We can see the speed, we can see the elevation, and we can see the trim angle. But once we have that, we can now generate a mesh. So if we want to generate a mesh, it's nothing more than I push on a button right here. And we would, in a couple of seconds, see result here. Of course, it needs to calculate all these different mesh points, all these different angles. It all needs to be calculated. So it can take a while, but normally within a few seconds, you would get your results. Okay, once we get our results, more often than not, we get a pop-up. You can just click this away. And what we see here is actually the boat we just defined. Some of the things which you should pay attention to. So we put on a little bit of curve, but with quite a long radius. And you see that this foil, it is curved ever so slightly, but maybe hard to look at it this way. Another important thing, we put on some taper on this part of the foil. So you see it getting smaller towards the tip. Same thing here. Here we added some taper, but also some sweep. So you see that the rudder elevator is swept a little bit backwards. You see also the axis system, which is pointed here. We can also move this. It's quite slow more often than not to get a better overview of what I'm talking about. So you see it's quite slow. But you see the curve right here, you see the curve right here, you see the center of gravity right here, and the axis system we're using. So the x-axis backwards, the y-axis, and the z-axis upwards. We see the central dagger board over here, the T-rudder, and everything. All in all, we can compare it quite good with this design we're seeing right here. So we got this foil outward. Maybe this 70 degrees angle is not ideal. It could have been 90, we put 70, it's not an issue. But for the rest, the slight curve, the ever so slight curve, it's also in there. So actually, I think this design is quite good. It would stop moving, that would be nice. But now maybe what we can do, if we're not completely satisfied with our design, we can edit this geometry we just created. So we go inside Edit Geometry. And what we will see right now, once it opens, is that we can quite easily change some of the angles we have inside. So first it needs to load in all the foils, which is good. Then the second partition, I said I wasn't happy with the dihedral angle. And maybe you remember, but we put in 70 degrees here. But right now it's written 28 degrees. Because if you edit the dihedral angle or you edit geometry, you get the absolute values back. Because you maybe want to know what the absolute value is, and then this is a way to get it. But if you want to define it, I think it's more easy to define it relative to the previous foil. So if we put in 0, it would just be tangential to the first partition. So this partition with the curve, it would be tangential to the end of that partition. But if we want to have 70 degrees, which was the same as its 28 absolute value, but right now we want to put 90 degrees towards our first partition. So we put in 90 degrees. Maybe we could taper it a little bit more. So we put 0.5, and I put in 69F, 69F_2. We override it. Geometry saved. This. But it hasn't changed yet. But this is normal because we have not generated our mesh again. So we put push generate mesh again. Again, it needs some time to calculate. We get this pop-up screen. Normally this time it will disappear. We wait a little bit. And what we see right now, we clearly see that this angle has changed. So it's a lot more upright. We also see that there's a lot more taper in there. So this is the first example of how you can create a geometry using this new geometry button, a new state button. If we would now were to load another geometry, so then you just press load geometry, and then you have all sorts of previous designs from me of other people in there. I will show you my first first try at the 69F. I don't think it's that different. I think the state is more or less the same. So this is my try of the 69F. Maybe we see some differences. I think it's quite similar actually. So we put in 69F here. We generate the geometry, generate the mesh. So it needs some time again. Okay, it's there. Oh, voila. So you see, it's more or less the same. I think my span is a little bit shorter. The angle was a little bit different. A lot more taper towards the end, but all in all, very similar. Okay, on to the next one. In the next one, we'll start using the calculation menu.